The jungle swallowed us whole, its damp breath clinging to my skin as I followed him deeper. My heart pounded not from the hunt, but from the way his eyes flickered when he thought I wasn't looking. I was 22, and this trip with my dad's best friend, Marcus, was supposed to make me a man. I'd grown up in suburban Ohio, where the closest thing to wilderness was the overgrown lot behind the Walmart. My dad, a soft-spoken mechanic, always said Marcus was the brother he never had. They'd met in the army, bonded over bad coffee and worse missions. Marcus was the kind of guy who could charm a room or silence it with a stare. He'd been around my whole life: barbecues, birthdays, the occasional fishing trip. But this, a hunting trip in the Oregon wilderness. This was new. Dad said it was a rite of passage. Marcus said it was time I learned what it meant to be strong. I didn't know what I thought, but I packed my bag and went. The trail was narrow, roots snaking across the dirt like veins. Marcus walked ahead, his broad shoulders cutting through the mist. His rifle hung loose in his grip, but his posture was anything but relaxed. "Keep up, Ethan," he called, not turning around. His voice was low, almost swallowed by the jungle's humbirds, insects, the rustle of leaves. I adjusted my pack, heavier than I'd expected, and tried to match his pace. I wasn't built for this. Skinny, more comfortable with books than guns. I'd always felt like I was disappointing someone. Dad. Marcus. Myself. "You ever shot anything?" Marcus asked, slowing to let me catch up. His eyes, dark and unreadable, locked onto mine. I shook my head. "Just targets. Dad took me to the range once." He smirked, but it wasn't cruel. "This ain't a range, kid. Out here, you feel the weight of it. The life you're taking." I nodded, unsure what he meant. Was he talking about the deer we were supposedly tracking? Or something else? We'd been hiking for hours when he stopped abruptly, crouching by a stream. He pointed to a set of hoof prints in the mud. "Buck," he said. "Big one." I squinted, trying to see what he saw, but all I noticed was the way his hand lingered on my shoulder as he stood. Firm. Too long. My stomach twisted, not unpleasantly, and I hated myself for it. I wasn't supposed to feel this way. Not about him. Not about anyone. According to the world I'd grown up in. Marcus was 45, maybe older, with a face carved by time and secrets. He wasn't handsome in a movie star way, but there was something about him raw, magnetic. I'd caught myself watching him before, at Dad's poker nights, or when he'd help fix the truck. His hands steady and sure. I'd always pushed those thoughts down, buried them under guilt. I was Ethan Carter, straight A student, good son, not whatever this was. "Focus," he said, snapping me back. He handed me the rifle, his fingers brushing mine. "You're going to take the first shot when we find it." I swallowed, the gun heavy in my hands. I didn't want to kill anything. I didn't even want to be here. But Marcus's gaze held me, like he could see right through the mask I'd worn my whole life. The jungle thickened as we moved deeper, the air growing heavier, the light dimmer. Marcus told war stories, hunting stories, tales of survival. His voice was a lifeline, pulling me through the unease creeping up my spine. "You ever feel like you're hiding something, Ethan?" he asked suddenly, stopping to face me. My breath caught. "What?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. "Something you're afraid to say." something that'd change everything. I froze. He knew. Somehow. He knew. The secret I'd never spoken. The one that kept me up at night. The one I'd buried under every normal thing I did. I wanted to run. To disappear into the jungle. But his hand was on my arm now. Steadying me. "It's okay," he said softly. And for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't strength or control. Vulnerability. Pain. The crack of a branch snapped us apart. Marcus spun. Rifle raised. Scanning the trees. "Stay low," he whispered. My heart raced. Not just from the sound, but from the moment we'd just shared. Something was shifting. Something dangerous and undeniable. The jungle wasn't the only thing hiding secrets. We didn't find the buck that day. Instead, we set up camp by a small clearing. The fire casting shadows that danced like ghosts. Marcus sat across from me, sharpening his knife. The scrape of metal against stone filling the silence. I wanted to ask him what he'd meant earlier, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I watched the flames, wondering if I was brave enough to face whatever this trip was really about. As night fell, Marcus stood and walked to the edge of the clearing, staring into the dark. "Tomorrow," he said, almost to himself. "Tomorrow, we'll find what we came for." I didn't know if he meant the deer or something else entirely. All I knew was that I was in deeper than I'd ever been, and there was no turning back. The fire crackled, spitting embers into the night sky. I lay in my sleeping bag, staring at the stars through the canopy. But sleep wouldn't come. Marcus's words echoed in my head, "Something you're afraid to say." Did he know about me? Or was he talking about himself? Morning broke with a damp chill. The jungle alive with sound. Marcus was already up, brewing coffee over the fire. His shirt clung to his back, damp from the mist, and I caught myself staring again. "Eat," he said, tossing me a protein bar without looking. I mumbled thanks, my face hot. We packed up in silence, the weight of last night's conversation hanging between us like fog. The trail grew steeper, the air thicker with the scent of earth and decay. Marcus moved with purpose, like he knew exactly where we were going. But I couldn't shake the feeling we weren't just hunting a deer. "You're quiet today," he said, glancing back. "Nervous?" I shrugged, avoiding his eyes. "Just not used to this." He nodded, but his expression was unreadable. "You'll get there. Takes time to face what's real." His words hit harder than they should have. Growing up, I'd learned to hide. My town wasn't exactly a rainbow flag kind of place. Church on Sundays, football on Fridays, and anything outside the norm was whispered about, judged. I'd dated girls, played the part, but it always felt like lying. Marcus, Thuff saw through it, and that terrified me. We stopped at a ridge overlooking a valley, the jungle sprawling below like a green ocean. Marcus pointed to a clearing where a buck grazed, its antlers catching the light. "There," he said, handing me the rifle. My hands shook as I took it. "I don't know if I can," I admitted, my voice barely audible. He knelt beside me, his breath warm against my ear. "You can. It's not about the kill. It's about choosing to act." I aimed, my heart pounding so loud I thought the deer would hear it. Marcus's hand steadied my shoulder, his touch grounding me. I squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, echoing through the valley, and the buck bolted, unharmed. I'd missed. "Damn it," I muttered, lowering the gun. Marcus didn't laugh or scold. First shots are always the hardest, he said. You'll get another chance. We descended into the valley, tracking the buck's path. The jungle felt alive, watching us. Marcus was quieter now, his usual confidence tinged with something else, hesitation. Maybe. At a stream, he stopped to refill our canteens, and I caught him staring at me again. What? I asked, sharper than I meant. He hesitated, then said, You remind me of someone I used to know. Someone who was stuck. Stuck how? I pressed, my pulse quickening. He looked away, splashing water on his face. Stuck in a life that wasn't his. Afraid to be who he was. My throat tightened. I wanted to ask more, but a rustling in the bushes cut us off. Marcus grabbed his rifle, motioning for me to stay behind him. A wild boar burst through, tusks gleaming, and charged. Marcus fired, the shot deafening. The boar squealed, veering off into the underbrush. You okay? He asked, turning to me. I nodded, my heart racing. He stepped closer, checking me for scratches. His hands firm but gentle. You're tougher than you think, Ethan, he said, his voice soft. For a moment, our eyes locked, and the jungle faded away. It was just us, the air electric with unspoken truths. We didn't talk about it. Instead, we kept moving, the buck's tracks leading us deeper. By late afternoon, we found another clearing, the buck grazing again. Marcus handed me the rifle, but this time, he didn't guide me. You're shot, he said, stepping back. I aimed, my hand steadier now. The deer's head lifted, sensing me. I fired. The buck staggered, then fell. I should have felt triumph, but all I felt was a hollow ache. Marcus clapped my shoulder. Good shot. His voice was proud, but his eyes were distant, like he was wrestling with something. We field-dressed the deer in silence, the act grounding me in a way I hadn't expected. Blood on my hands. The weight of what I'd donated was real, undeniable. As we set up camp that night, Marcus built the fire while I sat, staring at the deer's carcass. You ever regret something you didn't do? I asked, surprising myself. He froze, the firelight casting shadows on his face. Every day, he said finally. But regrets don't change the past. They just show you what matters. He looked at me, and I knew we weren't talking about hunting anymore. The fire's glow softened Marcus's edges, but his words lingered, sharp and heavy. I wanted to ask who he'd been, what he'd regretted, but the jungle's chorus crickets, distant owls drowned my courage. Instead, I pulled my jacket tighter and tried to focus on the deer, its lifeless eyes staring into nothing. Morning came too fast. Marcus was already packing, his movements precise but distracted. We're not done, he said, slinging his bag over his shoulder. There's more out here. I didn't know if he meant game or something deeper, but I followed, the rifle a familiar weight now. The jungle felt different today, less like a maze, more like a mirror, reflecting parts of me I'd avoided for years. We trekked through denser terrain, vines snagging at my boots. Marcus taught me to read signs, broken twigs, scuffed earth, but his lessons felt like a distraction. Every so often, he'd glance at me, his expression unreadable. You're doing good, Ethan, he said at one point, his voice softer than usual. Better than I expected. I mumbled a thanks, but my mind was elsewhere, tangled in the memory of his hand on my arm, his words about being stuck. By noon, We reached a river, its current swift and unforgiving. Marcus knelt to study the bank, pointing out faint tracks. "Another buck," he said. "We'll cross and follow it." The water looked treacherous, but he was already wading in, beckoning me to follow. Halfway across, my foot slipped on a rock, and I stumbled, the current pulling at my legs. Marcus grabbed my arm, yanking me upright. "Careful," he said, his grip tight. "I've got you." His hand lingered again, and my heart raced not from the fall, but from the way his eyes held mine, steady and searching. For a second, I thought he might say something, but he let go and turned away, splashing toward the opposite bank. I followed, my clothes soaked, my mind a mess. What was happening between us? Was I imagining it? On the other side, we rested, the jungle quieter here, almost reverent. Marcus sat on a fallen log, sharpening his knife again. I watched him, the rhythm of the blade hypnotic. "Why'd you bring me out here?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. He paused, the knife still. "Your dad thought it'd be good for you," he said, but his tone was off, like he was holding something back. "And you? What do you think?" I pressed. He looked at me, his eyes raw. "I think you're more than you let on, Ethan. I think you're scared, but not of this jungle." My breath hitched. He was too close to the truth, and I didn't know how to respond. Before I could, he stood, pointing to the tracks. "Let's move." The rest of the day was a blur of tracking and silence. We didn't find the buck, but the tension between us grew, a current stronger than the river we'd crossed. At camp that night, Marcus sat closer than usual, our knees almost touching as we ate. "Tell me something real," he said suddenly, his voice low. "Something you've never told anyone." I froze, my spoon halfway to my mouth. The secret I'd carried for years burned in my chest, begging to be let out. I don't know who I am," I admitted, my voice shaking. "I've been pretending my whole life, and I'm tired of it." His eyes softened, and he leaned closer, his hand resting on the ground near mine. "You're not alone in that," he said. "I've been pretending too." The air stilled. I wanted to ask what he meant, but his expression stopped me vulnerable, almost broken. For the first time, I saw the man behind the soldier, the friend, the myth. "Marcus," what I started, but a low growl cut me off. A shadow moved in the trees, eyes glinting in the firelight. Marcus grabbed his rifle, pulling me behind him. "Stay back," he whispered, his voice steady but urgent. The shadow didn't advance, but it didn't retreat either. A wolf, maybe, or something bigger. Marcus kept his rifle raised, his body a shield between me and the dark. My heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the realization that he'd protect me, no matter what. The shadow vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving us alone with the crackling fire and the weight of what we'd almost said. The wolf, or whatever it was, left a chill that lingered long after it vanished. Marcus didn't lower his rifle for a full minute, his eyes scanning the dark. I stood behind him, my breath shallow, wondering if the danger was really gone or if it was just beginning. Morning brought no answers. Marcus was quieter than ever, his usual confidence replaced by a guarded edge. We packed up and moved on, the jungle denser now, the air thick with moisture. The tracks we'd been following had faded, washed away by last night's rain. "We'll find something else," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. I wondered if he was talking about the hunt at all. As we pushed through the undergrowth, I couldn't stop replaying his words. I've been pretending too. What did he mean? Was he like me, hiding who he was? The thought sent a jolt through me, equal parts hope and fear. I'd spent years convincing myself I was alone, that no one like Marcus Strong, respected, untouchable could understand. But now, doubt gnawed at me. What if he did? We stopped at a small clearing, the ground soft with moss. Marcus dropped his pack and sat, pulling out a worn photo from his wallet. He stared at it, his thumb tracing the edges. Who's that? I asked, sitting beside him. He hesitated, then handed it to me. The photo showed a younger Marcus, maybe 30, standing next to a man with kind eyes and a shy smile. They were in uniform, arms slung around each other, laughing. His name was David, Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. We served together. I waited, sensing there was more. Marcus took the photo back, his fingers lingering on David's face. He was important to me, more than I could say back then. My heart stopped. The way he said it, the pain in his voice, it was the same pain I'd carried for years. What happened to him? I asked, my voice soft. Marcus's jaw tightened. IED. Afghanistan. I never got to tell him the truth. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. I wanted to reach out, to comfort him, but I didn't know how. Instead, I said, I'm sorry. It felt inadequate, but it was all I had. Marcus nodded, tucking the photo away. Don't be. Just don't make the same mistake I did. Don't wait until it's too late. His words hit like a punch. I wanted to tell him everything, how I'd known I was gay since I was 15, how I'd lied to everyone, how I was terrified of what it meant. But before I could, Marcus stood, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. Let's keep moving. His tone was final, like he'd said too much. The rest of the day was a blur of hiking and silence. We didn't find any game, but the jungle felt alive with possibility, danger, and something unspoken between us. At camp that night, Marcus sat across from me, the fire casting long shadows. You ever think about leaving? He asked suddenly. Starting over somewhere no one knows you. I nodded, my throat tight. All the time. But I'm scared. My dad, my friends, they wouldn't get it. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes intense. They don't have to. You live for you, Ethan, not them. His words were a lifeline, but they also terrified me. Living for myself meant facing the truth, and I wasn't sure I was ready. As we settled in for the night, Marcus moved his sleeping bag closer to mine. In case that wolf comes back, he said, but his eyes said something else. I lay awake, listening to his steady breathing, my mind racing. The jungle was stripping us bare, forcing us to confront what we'd both been hiding. But what would happen when we left this place? Could I go back to pretending? A twig snapped nearby, and Marcus was up in an instant, rifle in hand. I sat up, heart pounding. Stay there, he whispered, moving toward the sound. The darkness swallowed him, and for a moment, I was alone, the jungle pressing in. When he returned, his face was grim. Nothing, he said, but his hands were shaking. I realized then that he was as scared as I was, not of the jungle, but of what we were becoming to each other. The jungle was relentless, its heat and noise a constant reminder that we were far from home. Marcus's confession about David had cracked something open between us. But neither of us knew how to cross that line. I wanted to, but fear kept me silent. My secret still locked inside. We broke camp at dawn, the air heavy with the promise of rain. Marcus led the way, his movements sharp, like he was trying to outrun his own thoughts. I followed, my mind tangled in what he'd said about not waiting too long. Was he telling me to be brave? Or was he warning me about something else? The trail led us to a steep ravine, the path crumbling underfoot. Marcus tied a rope around a tree, securing it for us to descend. "Go slow," he said, his hand brushing mine as he handed me the rope. The touch sent a shiver through me, and I wondered if he felt it too. At the bottom, we found a small cave, its mouth hidden by vines. "We'll rest here," Marcus said, ducking inside. The cave was cool, a relief from the jungle's heat. We sat on the stone floor, sharing a canteen. "You ever loved someone you shouldn't?" Marcus asked, his voice echoing softly. I froze, my heart racing. I don't know. I lied. He looked at me, his eyes piercing. "Don't bullshit me, Ethan. I see it in you. The same thing I carried for years." I swallowed, my mouth dry. "I'm gay," I blurted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. They hung in the air, heavy and real. Marcus didn't flinch. Instead, he nodded, like he'd known all along. "Took guts to say that," he said. "More than I had at your age." I waited, expecting more, but he just leaned back, staring at the cave's ceiling. The silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. For the first time, I felt seen, not judged, not pitted, just seen. "What about you?" I asked, my voice barely audible. He sighed, rubbing his face. "David was more than a friend. I loved him, but I never said it. Not out loud. Not until he was gone." My chest ached for him, for the years he'd carried that regret. "I'm sorry," I said again, wishing I had better words. He shook his head. "Don't be. Just don't hide like I did. It'll eat you alive." His hand rested on the ground near mine, close enough that I could feel its warmth. I wanted to reach for it, but I didn't. We left the cave and kept moving, the jungle growing wilder, the air thicker. By afternoon, we spotted another buck, its antlers massive. Marcus handed me the rifle, his expression unreadable. "Your call," he said. I aimed, my hand steady this time. The shot rang out, and the buck fell. I felt no triumph, only a strange calm. Marcus nodded, a flicker of pride in his eyes. As we field-dressed the deer, our hands worked in sync, the act binding us in a way words couldn't. "You're stronger than you know," Marcus said, wiping blood from his knife. I met his gaze, and for a moment, the jungle disappeared. It was just us, two men carrying truths too heavy for the world outside. That night, as we camped by a stream, Marcus sat closer than ever, our shoulders brushing. "What happens when we go back?" I asked, my voice trembling. He looked at me, his eyes soft but intense. "That's up to you, Ethan. You decide who you want to be." His words were a challenge, a promise, and something more, something I wasn't ready to name. A distant howl broke the moment, and Marcus grabbed his rifle, scanning the dark. I realized then that the jungle wasn't the only thing testing us. Whatever was growing between us was dangerous, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. As we settled in for the night, I lay awake, wondering if I could be brave enough to face her if I'd let fear win again. Rain came at dawn, a relentless downpour that turned the trail to mud. Marcus and I packed in silence, our clothes clinging to our skin. His confession about David. My admission feed changed everything. The jungle wasn't just a backdrop anymore. It was a crucible, forging something neither of us could name. We slogged through the mud, the buck's carcass strapped to Marcus's pack. "We're heading back tomorrow," he said, his voice barely audible over the rain. My stomach dropped. Back to Ohio. Back to pretending. I wanted to protest, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I focused on the trail, each step heavier than the last. By noon, the rain stopped, leaving the jungle steaming. We rested by a fallen tree, its roots exposed like bones. Marcus pulled out the photo of David again, his fingers tracing the edges. "You ever tell anyone else?" he asked, not looking at me. I shook my head. "Just you." He nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "That's a start." The air between us was charged, every glance and touch electric. I wanted to ask him what we were doing, what this meant, but fear kept me silent. Marcus seemed to sense it. "You don't have to have all the answers now," he said, his voice gentle. "But you can't keep running from yourself." His words stung, but they were true. I'd spent years dating girls I didn't love, smiling at church, nodding along to my dad's dreams for me. But out here, with Marcus, I couldn't hide. He saw me, and that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. We pushed on, the jungle quieter now, as if holding its breath. Near dusk, we found fresh tracks of bear. Marcus said, his voice tense. "Stay close," he ordered, his rifle ready. My heart raced, not just from the danger, but from the way he positioned himself between me and the unseen threat. Protective. Fierce. The tracks led to a clearing, but the bear was gone. Marcus relaxed, but only slightly. "We're okay," he said, turning to me. His face was close, too close, and for a moment, I thought he might kiss me. My breath caught, my body leaning toward him instinctively. But he stepped back, running a hand through his wet hair. "Let's make camp." The fire was harder to start in the damp, but Marcus managed, his hands steady despite the tension in his jaw. We sat close, the heat of the flames mingling with the heat of his presence. "Tell me about David," I said, needing to understand. Marcus stared into the fire, his voice low. "He was everything. Brave, kind, smarter than me. I thought we had time. I was wrong." His pain was raw, and it broke something in me. "I don't want to wait," I said, my voice trembling. "I don't want to be like that, hiding, regretting." Marcus looked at me, his eyes searching. "Then don't," he said. "But it's not easy. The world out there, it's not kind to people like us." "People like us," I repeated, the words a revelation. He nodded, and for the first time, I saw him fully, not the soldier, not my dad's friend, but a man who'd loved and lost, who'd carried the same secret I had. I reached out, my hand brushing his. He didn't pull away. A rustling in the bushes snapped us apart. Marcus grabbed his rifle, but it was just a raccoon, its eyes glinting in the firelight. We laughed, the tension breaking, but the moment lingered. As we settled in for the night, Marcus's sleeping bag was closer again, his arm brushing mine. I didn't move away. The jungle was watching, But for once, I didn't care. The jungle was a mirror now, reflecting every fear, every desire I'd buried. Marcus's touch, brief as it was, had ignited something I couldn't ignore. As we packed up at dawn, I caught him watching me, his eyes a mix of caution and longing. We were running out of time. The trail back was familiar but heavier, the weight of the buck and our unspoken truths slowing us down. Marcus led, his silence louder than the jungle's hum. I wanted to speak, to ask what happened next. But every time I opened my mouth, fear choked me. What if this was just the jungle? What if, back in Ohio, he'd be my dad's friend again, and I'd be the kid hiding who he was? We stopped at a stream to rest, the water clear and cold. Marcus splashed his face, then handed me the canteen. Our fingers brushed, and my heart stuttered. "You're thinking too much," he said, a faint smile breaking through. "I can see it in your face." I laughed. Nervous. "Can't help it. All of this, it's a lot." He nodded, sitting beside me. "It is. But you're not alone. Ethan. Not anymore." His words were a lifeline, but they also terrified me. Being seen meant being vulnerable, and I'd spent my life avoiding that. "What about you?" I asked. "What happens when we go back?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "I don't know. I've been running from this for years. David was the only one who ever made me feel like I could stop." He looked at me, his eyes raw. "Until now?" My breath caught. Was he saying what I thought? Before I could ask, he stood, slinging his pack on. "Let's keep moving." The jungle seemed to close in as we walked, the air thick with the scent of rain. By afternoon, we reached the ridge where we'd first spotted the buck. Marcus stopped, scanning the valley below. "This is where it started," he said, almost to himself. I knew he wasn't talking about the hunt. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "Marcus, I don't want to go back to pretending." The words spilled out, raw and desperate. He turned, his eyes locking onto mine. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then, slowly, he reached out, his hand cupping my face. "Neither do I," he whispered. His touch was electric, and I leaned into it, my fear melting away. But before anything could happen, a low growl echoed through the trees. Marcus pulled back, grabbing his rifle. "Bear," he said, his voice sharp. I froze, scanning the shadows. The growl came again, closer, and Marcus pushed me behind him. "Stay back, Ethan." The bear emerged, massive and unafraid, its eyes locked on us. Marcus raised his rifle, his hand steady, but I saw the fear in his posture. "Don't move," he whispered. The bear huffed, taking a step closer. My heart pounded, but I wasn't just scared for myself, I was scared for him. Marcus fired a warning shot, the sound deafening. The bear roared, rearing up, then turned and lumbered into the trees. We stood there, breathing hard, the adrenaline fading. Marcus lowered his rifle, turning to me. "You okay?" he asked, his voice rough. I nodded, my hand shaking. "Thanks to you." He stepped closer, his hand finding mine. "I meant what I said," he murmured. "I'm done pretending." My heart soared, but the weight of reality crashed in. What did this mean for us? For my dad? For the world waiting beyond the jungle? As we made camp that night, Marcus sat close, our shoulders touching. The fire crackled, and for the first time, I felt free not from the jungle, but from the lies I'd carried. Whatever came next, I knew one thing: I wasn't alone anymore. The jungle was behind us now, but its lessons lingered, etched into every step we took toward home. Marcus and I moved slower, as if delaying the inevitable. The buck's weight was nothing compared to the truth we carried, fragile, precious, and terrifying. We reached the trailhead by noon, the world beyond the trees coming into focus. My truck waited, a relic of the life I'd left behind. Marcus loaded the buck into the bed, his movements deliberate, avoiding my eyes. "You ready?" he asked, his voice low. I wasn't. Not for Ohio. Not for my dad. Not for the questions I'd have to face. But I nodded, climbing into the driver's seat. The drive was quiet at first, the hum of the engine filling the space between us. I kept stealing glances at Marcus, his face unreadable as he stared out the window. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely above the road's rumble. He turned, his eyes soft but heavy. "We figure it out. Together." His words were a promise, but they didn't erase the fear. My dad loved Marcus like a brother, but would he understand this? Would he accept me? I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white. Marcus's hand found my knee, steadying me. "One step at a time. Ethan," he said. "You don't have to tell him everything today." We stopped at a diner outside town, the neon sign flickering in the dusk. Over coffee and greasy burgers, Marcus told me more about David, not just the pain, but the joy. The way they'd laughed together. The way David had made him feel alive. "I didn't know how to be myself back then," he said. "But I'm trying now. For him. For you." I reached across the table, my hand covering his. "I'm trying too," I said, my voice steady for the first time. He smiled. A real smile. And for a moment, the world felt right. But the moment passed, and we drove on, the lights of my hometown growing closer. When we pulled into my dad's driveway, my stomach churned. Marcus helped unload the buck, his presence a quiet strength. Dad came out, grinning, oblivious to the storm inside me. "Look at you, Ethan. A rail hunter," he said, clapping my shoulder. I forced a smile, glancing at Marcus. His eyes said, "You can do this." That night, over dinner, I told Dad the truth. Not about Marcus, not yet, but about me. The words poured out, clumsy but honest. "I'm gay, Dad," I said, my voice shaking. He froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. The silence was unbearable. But then he stood, pulling me into a hug. "You're my son," he said, his voice thick. "Nothing changes that." I cried, relief and fear mingling. Marcus watched from across the table, his expression unreadable but proud. Later, as he prepared to leave, he pulled me aside. "You did good," he said, his hand lingering on my arm. "I'm here, Ethan. Whatever happens next." He drove away, but I knew it wasn't the end. The jungle had stripped us bare, forced us to face who we were. Marcus wasn't just my dad's friend anymore, was my anchor, my mirror, my maybe something more. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I wouldn't face it alone. The hunt had been no accident. It was a reckoning, a chance to find ourselves in the wild. And as I stood in the driveway, the stars above as vast as the jungle, I felt something new, hope. Not just for me, but for us 12 men who'd found truth in the shadows and chose to step into the light.